Welcome to today's Explainer. Look, if you've ever found yourself at a networking event, a dinner party, or, just standing in the break room waiting for the coffee machine, feeling that sudden, universal dread of awkward small talk, you are in exactly the right place. We are going to completely dismantle that dread today and give you a real, practical roadmap to having vastly better conversations.
Because we've literally all been trapped in those stalled, agonizing conversations where someone just drones on and on about themselves. But why does that happen? Well, usually, it's because when people try to sound interesting, they end up just talking about their favorite subject, themselves. So we need to establish a golden rule right up front. To be interesting, you first have to be interested. Think about it. The absolute best listeners you know, they are always the ones who are incredibly well-liked and deeply respected as communicators.
So here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to escape the small talk trap, dive into our core strategy, which is mastering cluster questions, and then unpack active listening, social cues, and finish up with a rapid-fire connection toolkit.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the small talk trap, and escaping those awful, awkward silences.
You know this notoriously dull exchange, right? You ask someone, let's call her Jessie, "So Jessie, where are you from?" And she just says, "The Midwest." And you're thinking, okay, no city, no state, but out loud you just go, "Neat, so what do you do?" Jessie says, "I'm an operations specialist." You have absolutely no idea what that means, so you just awkwardly mumble, "What's that like? Fun?" It's just painful. The problem with that basic intro is that when you ask a limiting single-point question, you get a limiting answer. But check out the better intro. Are you originally from around here or are you new to the area? See the difference? By giving her a choice of at least two options, you've tossed a much better pitch for Jessie to swing at. It gives her room to expand. Maybe she says, "Actually, I'm from Reno, Nevada, the biggest little city in the world." And boom, you have a real conversation.
The big takeaway here is to open your questions up. If you want a brilliant alternative to the standard, "What do you do?" try asking, "How do you spend your time?" This is a total game changer. It lets a person who loves their job or maybe has a super fascinating hobby just light up and tell you all about it. But crucially, for someone who isn't exactly thrilled about their 9 to 5, it completely avoids forcing them to talk about a job they might actually hate.
All right, moving to Section 2, mastering cluster questions. This is the core strategy, and when traditional questioning falls short, this is your ultimate tool. Let's really explore the art behind this technique. So cluster questions are not just a list of random interrogations. They're a set of interconnected inquiries specifically designed to uncover what is genuinely on someone else's mind right now. Unlike the single-point questions we just talked about that force a specific answer, a cluster question throws out a web of ideas. It gives the other person a menu of options, which makes the whole thing feel like a natural, flowing conversation, rather than a police interrogation. The real art behind cluster questions lies in curating that web of ideas with some finesse, basing your options on what you can observe in the moment or what you already happen to know about them.
Let's break down exactly how you apply this art form step by step. First, you establish a bit of rapport because just walking up to someone and asking what's on your mind is a little intense. But once you have that baseline rapport, you toss the cluster. You say something quick and breezy like, "So Jamie, tell me, what's new with work, with your brother? How's the apartment search going? How was Michigan? What's up with the dog?" You just toss a bunch of things out rapidly and then you see what sticks. This is pure magic for two reasons. One, it proves you actually care enough to remember things about their life. And two, whichever question they choose to answer first is almost always the exact thing that has been occupying their mind lately.
Now, once they take the bait and choose a topic from your cluster, here's how you build on it. You don't just stop at their first answer. You mix in these specific follow-ups to dig a little deeper. You can use clarifying questions like, "Interesting, what do you mean by that?" Or curiosity questions, "What caused you to feel that way?" Or even reflection questions, "So what did you ultimately take away from that experience?" This gently pushes people to think just a bit harder, and it yields much fuller, richer, and more meaningful responses.
Section 3, active listening and echoing, or how to handle the answer. Because let's be honest, tossing out masterful cluster questions means absolutely nothing if you aren't doing the actual work of connecting.
Active listening is so much more than just staying quiet while someone else's mouth is moving. Look at step 2 here. Listen without planning your next response. This is huge. When we sit there secretly planning our next brilliantly witty comment, it actually causes us to pay less attention, and it literally makes it physically harder for our brains to hear what they are saying. You have to face them, make real eye contact, and just let their ideas come out without interrupting or rushing to inject your own story.
And if you want a truly brilliant psychological technique to prove you're actively listening, it's called echoing. People love talking about themselves, right?
And echoing lets them do exactly that, all while making you look like an absolute master conversationalist. Imagine this back and forth. They say, "Oh man, I just got back from a work trip." You say, "Work trip?" They say, "Yeah, each year we go to Tennessee for our national meeting." You echo, "National meeting?" They respond, "Well, yeah, our company has locations all over the country." You echo, "All over the country, you say?" And they just keep going. Well, not all over like Starbucks or anything, but we have about 30 locations.
It is so effective. Echoing is literally as simple as grabbing a word or phrase of interest from the response and just adding a question mark to the end of it. But, very important note here, you have to add a little flair so you don't sound like a patronizing parrot. Saying something like, 30 locations, wow, tell me more about that, reflects back the essence of their message. It validates their experience, it clarifies your understanding, and it encourages them to just keep sharing. Which brings us to Section 4, the power of social cues, focusing on body language and kinesics. Because even with flawless cluster questions, the connection is gonna fail if your nonverbal signals are off.
So kinetics is basically the practice of understanding how our body language and gestures communicate for us. And body language is social cue number 1. Before you even open your mouth, it tells everyone in the room if you are confident, insecure, or just sleepy. Standing up straight broadcasts confidence, but even more importantly, intentionally pointing your eyes, your feet, and your heart toward the person you are speaking with communicates deep respect, and it shows them that they have your absolute, undivided attention.
And we absolutely have to call out a very relatable habit here, the phone zone. What do we all routinely do the second we feel bored or uncomfortable or underconfident in a social setting? Boom, we reach for our phones. It is an instant, blinding signal of disinterest. Choosing to keep your phone in your pocket when you are with people instantly sets you apart from about 90% of the population. It tells them that the people right in front of you are more important than your notifications. Plus, every single time you resist the urge to check it, you are actively building your emotional intelligence and your immunity to momentary discomfort. All right, final section, Section 5, the Connection Toolkit. Introductions, compliments, and team talk. We're going to pack your bags with some rapid-fire, actionable strategies that anyone can use to build better connections instantly.
First tool in the kit, bragging on people during introductions. Please, don't just say, "Alex, this is Taylor. Taylor, this is Alex," and then just abandon them to wallow in an awkward silence. Set them up for success. Give them a reputation to live up to. You say, "Alex, meet Taylor. Taylor is literally one of the absolute best athletes I've ever known. And Taylor, let me tell you about Alex. Alex has traveled around the world more than anyone I know." Boom! You've instantly given them a shared track to run on, and you made them both shine in the process.
Next up, the compliment stairs. This perfectly illustrates how we can make our praise vastly more impactful. Look at level 1. I really like that suit. I mean, it's polite, sure, but the focus is entirely on yourself and your own opinion. Level 2 moves the focus to the object itself. Now that's a great suit. But if you really want to be a master connector, you have to climb to level 3. You put a glowing spotlight directly on the recipient and you add some genuine enthusiasm. Wow, you look great in that suit. By shifting the focus away from yourself and onto the recipient, that compliment goes from being polite to being incredibly memorable. Now flip that around. If you are on the receiving end, you absolutely must follow the cardinal rule of compliments. Never, ever downplay or reject it. When someone says your home looks terrific, do not say, "Oh, are you kidding? This place is a disaster." When someone is actively trying to be kind to you, deflecting it is essentially telling them to their face that they are wrong. Don't do that. Embrace it graciously. Simply smile, look them in the eye, and say, "Thank you, you're very kind." It uplifts their gesture and it makes them feel appreciated for trying. And the final tool in our kit is team talk. Notice the huge psychological difference here between I or you statements versus we or our statements. Using I or you can accidentally signal isolation or even place blame during a tense moment. But making a simple pronoun shift to we or our works absolute subconscious magic. It signals inclusivity, it signals shared responsibility, it shifts the entire focus from assigning blame to mutual problem solving, reminding everybody involved that, hey, we are all on the same team here, working toward a shared goal. Improving your social skills isn't some complex mystery. It is practiced one conversation at a time, mostly by mastering the art of the questions we ask. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Think of a specific friend, a colleague, or a family member that you're going to be seeing soon. What personalized cluster of 5 questions could you group together the very next time you talk to them? Apply these tools today.
Toss that cluster out there and just watch how it transforms and enriches your relationships. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and go have some truly great conversations.